Hi everyone, and welcome to this STEMpump camp. My name is Ritesh, and over this camp we're going to be going straight into Cinema 4D and the basics of it. We won't really be going too in-depth because it's obviously just a basics camp, but we'll be creating a lot of kind of cool things and rendering them and seeing how this works. So Cinema 4D is an awesome, rendering, model, sculpting tool that's used across the industry, whether it's in movies and TV, for video games sometimes. I know they use it for aerospace and airplanes and stuff like that, and cars to render it out. The idea of rendering is to make things with primitives and other shapes and models and objects, apply materials, lighting, environments. There's so many things you can do with this tool. Today we'll be, playing around with primitives, learning about the interface, lighting, environments, slash, sky stuff, and using the physical renderer to kind of come up with our final creation, which will kind of be a big jumble of different objects, but hopefully it will look pretty cool when we're done. So when you get Cinema 4D, there's gonna be links to get it. You can either get a trial for Cinema 4D Lite, which kind of limits what you can do, or you can get a student license or a real license, but you can probably get one. They have like monthly pricing. For students, I think it's $5 for 6 months, which is pretty good in my opinion. And just by paying that, you'd be able to do everything we do today. We're not going to be doing anything out of that. Um, but yeah, once you install that through the Maxon app or otherwise, and open up Cinema 4D, you'll see a panel like this. I'm currently on Cinema 4D R26. If you're on any earlier version, it might look different. I know R25 is pretty similar. So just keep that in mind. They've been changing a lot of things recently. But yeah, we can kind of learn this interface because it seems like there's a lot going on, but we're really only going to stay in the standard view and the standard layout and kind of look at what we have to deal with today. And we can kind of work ourselves left to right. So right here, we have this, I accidentally clicked on that. We have this bar right here, and we have a few tools. We have our selection tools right here, filters, and our live selection. We have our move tool, which you can also access by pressing E. It allows us to move objects against the Y, Z, and X, or X, Y, Z axes. You don't see in the top right of this canvas slash main view all these different axes. So the Z axis is the blue one, the X axis is the red one, and the Y axis is the green one. It might be a little bit confusing because they sometimes swap the Y and Z axes. But in this instance, just know those three, and it's always a little thing up here so you can remember. And so yeah, we can move objects against any of these axes. We can rotate by pressing R against any of these axes. And we can also scale, which means to grow against any of these axes, giving us full three-dimensional movement throughout this infinite space that we have here, quotes on the infinite. We won't really be messing with any of these. These are just paintbrushes for vector maps, splines, a placement tool, whatever. We've already talked about this a little bit. It's a canvas slash main view. It allows us to kind of see everything at once. We have a few little options here, whether we're going to use a different camera, what's being displayed, how we want it to look, blah, blah, blah. We won't mess with that. You can lock a few things, lock some of your axes here. We won't mess with this either. At the bottom here is our timeline. So for animation, you'll be able to look at the frames and play and pause stuff. We won't touch this either. At the top, we have a lot of different modes that we can use to isolate our creation slash model slash object slash whatever. So along with some viewport stuff that we also won't be touching, so we won't be doing that. These are other layouts that you can use. We're going to stay in standard. And then these are pretty helpful to us. These are our render settings. This is render settings. This is going to do our full render, and this is a partial kind of preview render. It'll render it right here. This will open another window render, and this will be our settings. This is our material manager. So when we add materials or create them like glass and metal and wood and such, they're all going to show up here. So you can just drag and drop them to your objects, either in the object list or directly onto this space. We can kind of close it by toggling. And then this is a pretty important part right here. So we can kind of click, and this is our null object. So we can use this for grouping. So you can put other objects inside of it. It doesn't really have any meaning. We can move it around, but it's null. It doesn't really do much. So I can delete that by just either right-clicking and deleting it. Search delete button. Yeah, delete. Or you can just hit the delete key, which is what I like to do instead, because it's just faster. You'll see a bunch of 2D shapes we can add, flowers, stars, whatever. We won't touch this. This is a pretty big panel for us. It's all of our 3D objects. So we have cubes, planes, cones, landscapes, pyramids. All these are our primitive objects. And so these are kind of the bare bones of what we get to work with. Let's click on the cube, and we kind of get a big cube right here. And you can kind of see it's added itself to the object list, as well as to our canvas, I'll call it. At the bottom, we have our attributes panel, which shows us all the attributes of this cube. On the basic, we can customize how it looks here and how the system recognizes it. So we can rename it to "This is my cube." We can set its editor visibility on or off. So if I don't want it in the editor, it won't show up. And we can also have renderer visibility on or off, which means if it'll show up in our final product when we do our full render. And you can also enable or disable it. And you can kind of see they all correspond to these little dots for quick access. We have coordinates, and now we can kind of show you all these axes and the power of these tools. So obviously, when I move it with the move tool selected, you can press E. And you can also see it says move. We can click on this thing and we can just move it. You can see we have arrows. If I move it along the x-axis, you can see the transform changing. You can do Control Z to undo, or Command Z, depending on what you're using. On Mac, I think it works both ways. So yeah, we can move along the x-axis, the z-axis, and the y-axis, and I can kind of reset these all to 0. I can hit R and we can rotate, and so you can see me just grabbing it, not really grabbing any of the axis rotation specifically. I can just grab full control. I'm just gonna kind of undo that, but if I click here, you can also drag or type in numbers. You can see this rotates along the y-axis, against the x-axis, and against the z-axis. You can just change that to however you see fit. I'll change it to XYZ, so you can kind of see that, and that. So I'll read to 0, and obviously you can always just turn it. And then T, you can see ERT roll next to each other. Now we can scale. So if I hit T, you can see they now change the boxes. So when we move, we have arrows. When we rotate, we have a little origin circle sphere with all the 3 axis circles intersecting. And then T, we have little cubes, and we can scale along certain of these. So that's, you can also obviously just scale along the axes here. What's really cool though is that on E, or move, we can actually just also scale by pulling this little yellow circle dot thing. And that's also available for rotation, as well as the scale tool. I don't know why you'd need it on the scale tool, but it's helpful. Instead of just scaling the whole object, these all just kind of scale the whole object anyways. So we have our cube. You can add text. So say I want to have text. There's my text. I'm unscaling, so I can turn to E and add some text. I can select the text, and you can just change the what's being shown. So STEMpump camp, or I can just do STEMpump. And you can see it updates. We can choose a font. I'll choose this one. This is what we use anyways. And you have a sort of STEMpump thing here. I'll scale it down by pressing T and just making it smaller. And then we can also rotate it, obviously, so we can make it face us. We can modify this text and increase the height, which is technically the same thing scale, but also the depth of it. So we can make it really fat. You can go even further. But I'll maybe make it like 20. No, that's way too much. 10. That's better. Divisions. And subdivisions aren't really as helpful in, I guess, text as much. because you can see as I increase it, nothing really happens. But if we pull over a sphere, we have segments, which is pretty similar. Um, and essentially segments, as we increase the number of them, we increase the amount of processing our computer has to do, but as a result of that, we get a more round sphere, which is something I get to say. Because if we have, 3 segments, it looks like a diamond, but the more you increase, it looks closer, If you see any like old 3D games, they'll have a lot less segments because obviously the hardware and computing wasn't powerful enough. But now we have powerful enough hardware that we're able to do this. So I usually go around 48, 30, like really like see 32 still has like a little bit of ridging here and there. You can do 48, and I can even just move this inside here. Maybe I'll just do that. I'll press T to scale it. Use E to move it just downwards, maybe. Just lock it inside there. We can just do leave it to the back. Making Kirby in this is very easy. So we have text, obviously. We have a text spline that you can do, which we won't really mess with. But yeah, text is cool. These are our, kind of modifiers. I have no clue what the real name is. But we can use them to do a few other things. We won't really talk about this today. But I can do an array of spheres, and you can see how it just duplicates them, which is kind of helpful. And now I have multiple of them. You can click on the array. And the way I did that was just literally create the array, just drag it on it so you can see this little down arrow, and then it just creates it. Then we can click on the array, and you can see that radius when we increase it. So maybe we'll do like that. We'll like that. We can do copies, so how many of them we want. So we can go a lot. I'll just stick to 5. Amplitude is just an amplitude of it. You can have it kind of go up and down. I guess if you can kind of tell, it goes. So you can do 20. You can do these cool ridging effects. That's actually kind of cool. And then what if I did this? A lot of this is just playing around and having fun with it. Then we can tighten the radius. I guess we can tighten the radius and increase. You can do that. That's kind of cool. There's a frequency that doesn't really do much for us, and then this. That's kind of cool. If it did that, and yeah, so you can do that. There's also matrices and cloners, whatever. You can do bends. So for our text, maybe we can do a bend, and so you can add this bend. You can create a strength. That's within the box. I don't know if you can do it with this object specifically. Maybe you can do it with the cube. And now you can see this bend. And actually, what I think we actually have to do is just add it underneath here. And now you can see. So with the purple ones, you have to add it to the object, and with the green ones, you have to add it underneath. And you can see now we can bend it. So with that ideology, we can actually apply this to our text and just bend it kind of. But this thing's kind of a whole object. This is it can break so quickly. You can kind of see it maybe lengthened a little bit. You can have an angle to it. There's so many cool and wacky things you can do with Cinema 4D. Actually, I kind of like this broken that. I'll keep that. That looks fun. And I can still, move my text normally. So we'll keep it like that. That's going to be crazy terrible to render out, but nonetheless. We have this pink, which are some fields we won't worry about. We have skies, floors, whatever. Some extra camera systems that we might want to use, we won't really touch. And then some other things like physical skies, but we won't really look at that either. So we can actually go into our render settings and get a little bit of this out of the way. So you can click on this gear right here and go to render settings. And we'll change this renderer to physical. And we're going to actually just leave it at 1280 by 720. Actually, let's go 1920 by 1080. We're done here. We can go to save, and you'll choose where you want to save it. I'm going to save it to my desktop. I'm just going to call it my first render. I'm also going to change the format to PNG just because it's more used and interchangeable, and it's also a good standard. We go to physical and kind of set a little bit of our information here. We can do depth of field and motion blur, even though we're not doing animation. Let's set this to progressive, just so it kind of works out in our favor. Or we do adaptive. Let's just do this for now. Advanced, we can change the ray tracing engine to physical. So ray tracing is like glass and light simulations and such. And we can hit the close button. If we click right here and you can kind of see that's what we have so far. That's it rendered out. It's because there's no materials applied or such. So you can do that. So before we go into our materials, let's talk about like how we maneuver around our scene and how we can actually align things up. So if you hold shift, you can if we hold option, you can pan around like this. And you can see if I do this and I hit this button, our angle has changed. I'm just gonna try and just rotate it like that. If you middle click your mouse, you can see that now we have actually a view from all of our axes. So from this one's like a top view, our side view, and our front view, I guess. So front, our side's kind of back there, and our top. And you can see that all the axes kind of rearranged. So Y and Z. And this is super helpful for alignment of certain objects. So if I wanted to add, say, a cone, I can now just like align it. Maybe I want to angle it like this. I'm going to scale it. I'm going to scale it into a little party hat. I'm going to move it. And here I can kind of see, okay, I want it, right there. But on the top, it's not aligning, so maybe right there. And maybe I'll angle it so it's kind of like there. And it looks like a kind of a party hat. Maybe I want to add a torus, kind of looks like a donut basically. And we can also, click on this and we have an object view, and we now control its radius, its ring segments. So you can see that, ooh, that's kind of cool, like that. You can do this, you can do pipe segments. So these segments are kind of work the same way as the subdivisions. We can do radius, I'll kind of shrink it. I'll lower that radius, it's kind of like this. E, R, for rotate, kind of like this. Just leave it floating maybe. You can add some other things, maybe a platonic, which are these kind of cool, dice shapes if you've played like Dungeons and Dragons or D&D. You can have like, 12, 13 sided dice. And so we can also do segments here. We don't really need it, but radius. And so this is the tetra. It's like a pyramid, hexa, cube, octa, and then this is the bucky. It's kind of like a soccer ball, basically. We can set a radius, but I'll just kind of keep it there. Let's do the akasa. Like a figure. You can have like a dude. He's just kind of there, but don't really want that. There's tubes. There's like so many different general primitives we can use. But yeah, and then when you're done, you can middle click back into the view that you'd like. So I'm gonna middle click into this one right here. I'll go back into this new view, and if I hit this button again, because this is what we use to preview. Any slate movement does that. We get something weird. We just get it without any materials. To make sure that we can pan around as we move, and we can kind of move around and test different things. And such, we can actually add a camera. So I'm just gonna, pan here, do that. I'm just gonna kind of get I can hold control and zoom in. You can hold tab and scroll up and down, and shift is horizontal. And that kind of looks good to me. I'll hold option to kind of get a little bit more of an angle here. We can actually hit the camera button, camera. We can right click, click on rigging, and then go to protection, and then set like this, and now we kind of view from that perspective. And then now our other camera can kind of zoom around. You can kind of see that we have this little camera box. And whenever you actually want to see what it looks like, you can go to camera and it'll lock us back in. So this is kind of helpful. I'll go lock back in just for the time being. That's it. So let's create some materials. We can click on this, on our material manager, and create, maybe a basic material. So I can hit new standard material. I can add it to this box, and I can double click on it. You can see that the material kind of added right there. And maybe I want a pink box. And you can see as I just change it, it changes. And if I actually wrong button, sorry. If I hit this, you can see it kind of looks pretty similar, just without any other stuff, because we don't have lighting or environments built in yet. And so we have that pink. We can do maybe a glass, so I can create a standard. So that's kind of like a generic. So I can double click on this. We can add some transparency, and you kind of get more of a glass. So we can actually add this glass on top right here. And we add this pink behind it. You can actually just delete. And now if I kind of look at it, we kind of render it out. You can kind of see that all the balls inside are kind of messing with the glass. So I can actually just turn off this array. And we can kind of see what this looks like, maybe a little bit better. You can see that we don't really see the pink behind it. So maybe we want some transparency. We want the transparency to be a little bit greater, or the reflection to be a little bit lower. You can change this to actually be a Beckman instead. And you can actually increase, its specular strengths and whatever. There's so much you can do with this. It's still not kind of showing the glass on the other side. We can reduce the transparency of it. So this is such a glass. We can look at that. Increase the brightness. A lot of it is just trial and error. I was trying to figure out, what's the best way. We can kind of see, oh, it's not even close by. And I can render again. You can't even see it from here. Now you can kind of see it because it's closer. We can reduce the transparency of it, and it's a little bit more different. So there's a lot of different things you can mess with in these settings. Just go full transparency, and it'll just kind of reflect on the inside of it. We can actually just modify this and add some reflectance to it. We can go to a Beckman model, change it to metal, and then increase reflection strength. But you can see if I go full reflection and reduce everything else, it just kind of becomes like a chrome, basically. And you can kind of see it. We don't really have lighting yet, so you can't really tell. But I also want it to be maybe like a pink, so we can have that. And you can see the more as I kind of increase this, things change. But what we actually want to do is actually change this color entirely, is have that be set, remove the color, and then we can actually determine our own reflection based on it. And it's a little bit easier if we can create something that shines light. So we can actually create a new standard material. We can apply this to our sphere. We can add luminescence, which kind of makes it glow. We can add reflectance, and we can add a glow to it as well. We can make this like green, maybe. Kind of neon green. And you can kind of see, now we have like a little bit of this edge reflection. You can kind of see some light going through this glass and such. So yeah, that's kind of our super basic materials and stuff like that. So we want to make things look a little bit better because we have that stupid black background. And it doesn't really allow us to let our material shine. So let's create a physical sky. We can click on this little icon and create a physical sky. You can see, whoa, everything has kind of changed. And if we actually look at it again, you can see that there's a lot more depth to it. There's a lot more reflection to it. And now we can kind of mess with, what's there? Maybe I want some atmosphere and clouds. You can kind of update this. It'll take a little bit longer now, obviously, because we added a few more things. If I remove atmosphere and I run it again, you can see it kind of changed a little bit. We can set, time and date. I can do a current time and today. Oh wait, no, wrong button. Stop this one. And so that kind of looks like this, a little bit nicer. The sky, you can do a lot of weird things with it. You can have a physical sky or like a kind of more fake one that's kind of determined on a pre-made gradient. This one sometimes looks like really, really nice. Kind of like this one. And they have so you can do like a rainbow. Can I download this? Yeah, this is kind of nuts. See, like I can't look at that. But I kind of like the sky. We can do this if we want to do more of a kind of blue type sky. But I still think this cube doesn't allow us to really show off what we want. So we can actually click on the cube. This is my cube. And there's this thing called Fillet, which allows us to basically make it round. And we can also add Fillet subdivisions to make it a little bit more smooth. I'll make it actually 50. No, that was terrible. 32. That looks a little bit better. And now if I kind of hit my render preview, you can see like there's a lot more happening because there's so many more, you know, subdivisions going on and such. You can even go back in here and like, you know, mess with certain reflection. So maybe I want less reflection. You can do that. Or I want a lot of reflection, less roughness, maybe a different bump strength. And you can see this thing's going to become a lot different. And this thing is like all just shiny now. You can see it's picking up some of the lighting. Let's add some materials maybe to our text and these other things. So I'll add another I guess default. It doesn't really matter. To my text. So I can add to the text. And maybe yeah, let's make it kind of like more of like a metal almost. I know we did metal already, but let's kind of try something new. We can make it more of a gray, kind of. Let's do that. Turn off color. I want to change this to a Beckman. Metal. Just have like a crap ton of just reflection. We can kind of look at how that looks. Just as a quick render. You can see it's kind of glittery. We can remove bump strength, remove that specular strength. What if we went full chrome? You can kind of see there's a little bit of reflection there. Can I just go like green? Could we get like a good green and then see what that looks like? Maybe I'll put the text closer to the object. Maybe I'll rotate it on the z-axis to kind of just get it to fall into this. I can go back into here. We can look at how that looks. See what happens to it. Yeah, you can see it's like kind of getting all messy. Let's mess with our cone and our platonic. You can add a standard material. Let's add to our cone. Let's make it maybe a red party hat. So we don't want this, but we want a diffusion. You get maybe red. That might be all we really want, you know? Maybe just keep it kind of basic. I want to move it maybe somewhere else. Actually, not really. We can actually do something different with this, though. We can change the color, and we can try to go a gradient instead. Can I do that? Are you gonna let me? Actually, no, we can just go here and do the gradient. I don't know why I was going there. And you can actually do a full-on gradient. So let's do like a, you know, like a red maybe. Let's do a red. To a bright blue, like that. We can make it maybe a circular and kind of get a little bit of that cool. We have some turbulence. That looks kind of interesting. You can change scale. You can change different seeds, kind of give you different results. Maybe an angle. That looks kind of cool. Let's click on our cone and see if there's anything else we can do. You add more segments to make it sharp, or I guess more flat. We add some cap segments. That doesn't really do much for us. A lot of C4D is really just understanding, you know, what do you want to do with it and kind of playing to what you like. Let's listen to this platonic here. We can add a material there. Maybe we'll do let's do a environment one. color maybe. Is it transparent? No, reflected. Remove that. Let's go to the different type of reflection maybe. This looks kind of different. And see how that kind of renders out in this environment. So you can see we can kind of get a different type of reflection out of it. And obviously, you know, we put the platonic inside this thing. You're going to get a much, you know, different result. We can actually even put this, you know, luminescence ball inside. We can kind of drop this. We can kind of push you in. You can kind of see what that looks like. Maybe rotate this a little bit more. Move it upwards. I don't like this green as much anymore. We can add a kind of weird Fresnel maybe, or a gradient. Let's try this gradient. That might look kind of cool in this. You can see what this is when we put our. That looks crazy. Oh my god. Let's reduce that down. Kind of looks like, you know, normal. They have a little bit of a glow to them. Let's reduce the amount of our objects we have. Maybe we'll just do that many. And I also don't like this green anymore, so I'll change it to a blue. I want to change this to a kind of like that. That'd be cool. Maybe the pink, we do a green instead. Oh, that's the other reflectance. Sorry. We do kind of a teal, maybe. Maybe we want to change our physical sky back to a real sky. And we kind of get something else. We can actually just change this, maybe. You can kind of get different results. We can kind of change this gradient. Now we can render this out and it'll look completely different than before. Which is one of the cool things about, you know, rendering. We can change materials out and stuff, you know. I can change that out. You can kind of see what this looks like. And, you know, it still kind of looks different. But yeah, I mean, I actually liked the other one more. But yeah, so actually we can try some other options. You know, maybe this more basic sky. Or even let's try like a flame, you know. That might kind of look cool. And you can see just by changing what that looks like, we get a whole different result. Maybe we'll render with this. But yeah, before our final render, which is kind of the end of this, we can kind of go double check everything, go back into physical. Let's change it to high. Sampler, we can keep that all the same. And then you'll click this button right here, this play button, yes. And you'll see now it will go, you know, frame by frame, trying to, not frame by frame, but like, I guess a set of pixels at a time, just calculating it. Since this is going to take a long time, I'm going to actually reduce it. If you want a really high quality render, you'll want to leave it longer. I'll just go to low just for the time being. You can also mess with these numbers to get better results. Maybe I'll add something actually. Let me add a ambient occlusion. Or can I add, no, let me add an effect. Let me add an ambient occlusion effect, as well as a global illumination effect. Exterior, which we're using a physical sky. For ambient occlusion, use the sky environment. And I can hit play. I'll override it, yeah, because I want to better result. So this kind of gives us a much, see, we get even a more different result from this than we got in our preview. Depending on your computer, you'll get different speeds of processing. I'm on my laptop right now, and you know, if you have a Windows computer, you even get different speeds. But yeah, I mean, it looks a lot nicer here, and there's kind of our giant mess. But we can kind of put them, you know, side to side. I'll minimize it. So if I, you know, show you this, you can it will match basically now. But you can kind of see before and after. These two things are completely different. And it's kind of cool. That's kind of the power of rendering. I can even, you know, render it again, obviously, with a different sky model. I really like this one. And I can hit render. I'll override it, obviously. And you can kind of see it with global illumination and ambient occlusion. It's going to start, you know, figuring out where the light's going to hit first, and then it kind of goes over it again. But yeah, I think this is going to be the end of our camp when this finishes. I hope to do more of these in the future, especially with C4D, because I'm kind of learning it a few months ago. I started learning it, or even last year. I totally have lost all track of time. And it's a really fun tool to use. I've been using a lot more STEMpump for, you know, assets and graphics. And so we're going to look at Octane, which is another alternative, which I personally use compared to physical, and kind of see, you know, how far you can go with this. We might do an environment or something like that. If you have any, you know, recommendations or questions or things that you want to see, let us know, and we'll hopefully get that done for you. But yeah, that's been a basic look at Cinema 4D. If you have any, you know, awesome renders, feel free to email them to us, and we'll get you featured. Yeah, but yeah, have a good day, night, or, you know, wherever you are. But yeah, thank you.